Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Wrestling Fluency community, children of all ages, let me introduce to you the alternative cowgirl, dropping bows and breaking nose, the Alabama Slammer, Brandie.
Yes! That's fantastic, Matt. You did such a good job with that.
Yep. How about that for a new fire intro?
Love it, love it, love it. I'm sure the people are loving it too. Well, Matt, should we tell the people a little bit about what's going on with us here at Wrestling Fluency?
Well, we should. So we are now not only on YouTube, we are on Spotify, and if I'm not mistaken, Brandie, we're also on Apple.
We are, hopefully, if you're hearing this, on all podcast streaming networks.
That's right. So if
Yes.
you got a podcast streaming network, we are on it. And hopefully,
wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep. And hopefully you'll get your wrestling fluency fix from there.
Yes. Matt and I took the big leap of faith to bet on ourselves. So we've invested in some programs. So hopefully you're getting better audio. Hopefully you're finding us other than YouTube. We're really working very hard to give you high quality content.
Yep. And I can't say it enough. We are proceeding to give you what you need.
Yeah. Wrestling Fluency being on Spotify is something that we've been talking about for over a year. Because Matt and I both use Spotify often to listen to podcasts. And so we knew we really wanted him on, I wanted our show on that platform.
Yep, and definitely. And as soon as we can hit that, we can throw that goal under achievement unlocked.
Yes, this is very exciting for us. We're recording with a new program today, and it's just really crazy cool. We've been working on this about an hour already.
So. Oh my God, the hiccups and the stress was real, and Brandie was trying to talk me through it, and oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. I'd get into it, but y'all would be here all night.
Yeah. So y'all, please forgive us if you hear any of us moving around or any pages shuffling, anything like that. Please look over that because this is new recording software. We don't know how sensitive it is, so please look over that.
Right, exactly. And we're just over here just doing the best we know how with what we got. So there's that for you folks.
Mm-hmm. It makes you feel like you're at the house, you know?
Yep. Yeah. It makes you feel like you're part of the family.
Yeah. You hear Matt's chair squeak a little bit. You hear my chair squeak a little bit. That's because we're at the house, y'all.
Yep, exactly. And I'm sitting on my old grandmom's chair and all. So.
Well, so at the beginning of the show, you heard my new theme. Recently got that made. Really loving it. You will get to hear $1 Million Matt's new theme. And so we thought that was a really fun, cool thing to have different themes that you guys could identify who's hosting the show. So, of course, when you hear that y'alternative sound, that's going to be me hosting the show. And I won't spoil Matt's music, but Matt's music is really cool. It's going to be really fun.
Yep. All I got to say, y'all, is it's fire and it's going to slap.
It's going to slap. So let's get into what this episode is about. This is our first episode on Spotify, so we obviously are celebrating our Spotify debut, our debut of being on Apple, our debut of being on all these different podcasting forms, and all our new bells and whistles we have. And in the spirit of that, we've decided to kind of do a what's new current events episode.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's going to be Catchup episode number 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, because a lot has happened. A lot has gone down since the last time we talked on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Yep. And it just seems never ending, Brandie. It's just like, good Lord, when is the tea going to stop spilling of wrestling news?
I don't know if it's just me or what, but it feels like every time I turn around, there's some new thing happening in wrestling. It's almost like the sites that used to report on like signings and people leaving the company and match results, they're TMZ pretty much, keeping up with all the craziness that's happening in the
Yeah.
wrestling world.
Yep, and it just seems like we're keeping up with a lot of the action outside of the ring instead of in the ring.
Yeah, for real. Where the inside of the ring has been pretty quiet, outside of the ring, it has been messy.
Yeah.
It's been real messy. And we're going to start off first talking about the fact that Raw is now TV 14. So maybe we'll see a little messiness on our screens now.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're going to see a lot of good-ish or shit that is now going to be on TV.
Mm-hmm. I am happy to see the PG era come to an end. I'm happy for TV 14 because I just know as a writer, it's so difficult to deal with just strictly PG, especially when your demographic isn't PG people. You know, they're trying to get that like 18 to like 40 demographic.
Right.
And for the longest time, they catered to the little kids with the PG 13. But now they've really decided, I guess, to move back to, hey, let's cater to the people who actually have jobs and buy our merchandise.
Yep, exactly. And it just seems like they're catering to a much more broader audience, which is the 18 to 40 something demographic. So with that being said, they want to keep the sales and everything going up, especially with ticket prices and everything. You want to have your events and all that sell out. So the best way to do that is to cater a little bit more to the much more grown folk.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe the PG era made them some good money, but I know that it ran wrestling fans off. Like the people who were fans that I grew up with, the PG era really ran them off. And I think with the rise of AEW and AEW being so popular, there was no way they could stay PG because you can't have characters on another wrestling show who are dropping curse words and they have like really more adult themed content. You can't really compete with that when you're trying to do like real white meat babyface stuff.
Right, exactly. Just like you can't have a PG crowd in there while Brock Lesnar is describing a shit kicking that he's going to give to Roman Reigns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did say that while it was still PG. But recently with Brock and with Roman changing the way he was, I feel like a lot of people responded to those segments because they felt like adult segments. Nobody wants to tune into a program where you hear someone be like, "Hey, you doo-doo pee-pee head,
Yeah.
how dare you?" Nobody wants to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's almost as cringy as when WCW tried to do edgier promos. Remember, I'm not sure if you watched WCW around like late 1999, like early 2000, where they were trying to be edgy and said, yeah, we're going to kick your butt. And it's just like, okay.
Butt.
Yeah, trying to sound tough. I was like, really? You're going to sound tough by saying you're going to kick your butt?
Oh my gosh. That's right. We're going to kick your rump.
We're going to kick your tuchus to Timbuktu.
You're going to feel it in your rear end when I'm done with you. Okay, wait a minute.
Okay, we're getting way over to PG. But just so you know, folks, Wrestling Fluency is not PG. So
Wrestling Fluency is not PG. No, not at all.
Yeah, we are basically an after dark podcast, so you might want to put the kiddies to bed, folks.
You might want to.
Yeah.
So, speaking of putting the kiddies to bed, you may really want to put the kiddies to bed when we talk about our next subject, which is Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon, businessman in the streets, hoe in the sheets. He is just hitting around.
Yeah. He's really letting them grapefruits spread his seed.
It's grapefruit. Oh my god.
Yep.
I forgot about the whole grapefruit
Yep.
thing.
Well, Brandie, he is the genetic jackhammer.
Oh my goodness. That made me laugh so hard I yawned. Um, oh, Vince McMahon. So, for those of y'all who don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what rock you've been under, but Vince McMahon, like most billionaire men, has had some dalliances. Okay? He stepped out on his wife a couple
Mm-hmm.
times. The problem with that is, one, you shouldn't do that. Don't do that. That's an asshole thing. But
Yep.
two, really
Dick
don't do
move.
what Vince McMahon did. He mixed business with pleasure.
Yep.
So what has happened is, Vinnie Mac has been found out of paying this woman who they put in the legal department because, not even because she applied for the job, but because she had studied to be a paralegal at one point, and that was on her resume. Is the rumor that I'm hearing. But
Right.
so it started out, Vinnie Mac was only in for $3 million. Now it's up to $12 million. Now there's some stuff about like one of the girls from the Divas era possibly being
Yep.
involved in it.
Yep. Yeah, there was one that was heavily rumored, which we'll keep anonymous. But for the most part, that's what pretty much got her demoted and destroyed her push because she was being pushed for a hot minute.
Yeah. Which now I've heard other wrestling personalities talk about once Vince got the private plane, he started having private meetings on the private plane. And I hate to tell y'all, but it's still cheating even if it's the Mile High Club, okay? It's still
Yep, that's
cheating.
right.
Just because you're
Yep.
not on the earth doesn't mean it.
Yep, exactly. And I was going to say, advice to my fellas, even ones that are powerful, don't shit where you eat.
Duh.
It don't taste good.
I have never really understood. I understand why relationships happen at work.
Right.
I have never personally dated someone I worked with
Yeah.
because, God, that would just feel like you can't escape them. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
it would just be
And
awful.
and here's the thing, a little off topic, Brandie, about where I work at. Now, there's some couples that work together and they made it work, and hey, more power to you. But other than that, me personally, I couldn't do it. Just for the fact that, like Brandie was saying, you see that person every day, and let's say you're mad at them or you got into a big fight, then it's awkward.
Yeah, it's just like, now I've worked in retail stores where there were people who were dating or they were married, and they worked in different departments, like
Right.
far apart from each other. And
Mm-hmm.
it worked fine. It worked out fine that way, because one of my big thing is, like, when you're working with your like partner, you have
Mm-hmm.
nothing new to say when you come home, really.
Right.
That's boring. I personally never had, but Vinnie Mac has decided that he's going to, or he did. I don't know if he's still going to, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about the legality of all this. And I don't know what the specific laws are. I do know that, anytime it's like your boss, there's a power dynamic there. And that
Mm-hmm.
is an abuse of power. Like, just being a woman myself, knowing other women, there are times where you really do feel coerced into doing something. And I can't really say, because I'm not that person. I don't know. I wasn't a fly on the wall. But I like to try to think about it from the perspective of, like, okay, what are the facts that we know, or what are the facts we can deem? Because whether she felt coerced or not is something that I can't know. I'm not her. So my whole thing, because I saw a lot of people, them boys, they like to be like, man, Vinny, he paid for it though. She knew what she was getting into. It was a business deal. I'm like, yeah, it was. But we've got to look at it from the perspective of the company.
Right.
Was this on company time?
Mm-hmm.
What was company funds used to do this?
Yep.
Like,
And I was going to touch base on that too, Brandie. to where it's almost like if he was using company money, then more than likely it's going to land him in some deep doo doo. But if it's from his own personal funds, then more than likely it could possibly get dismissed. But that's my early prediction. Like I said, I'm not, like Brandie was saying, we're not flies on the wall here. We're just seeing the facts for what they are.
Yeah. My thing is that, and we know the 3 million. Somebody,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe we don't know this. So I had heard somewhere that the 3 million that he paid that woman
Right.
was out of his own pocket. And I'm like, all right, you know, I mean, is it shitty you cheated on your wife? Yeah, it is.
Oh,
But
totally.
that's your problem. That ain't got nothing to do with the WWE.
Yep, exactly. Total dick
But
move personally.
yeah, but now the money. There's other people involved, other women involved. It's up to $12 million he allegedly spent on these NDAs and paying for stuff. And here's my thing: just fucking hire a professional.
Mm-hmm.
That drives me nuts. Look,
I'll call girl.
Yeah, look, the laws around sex work are weird, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got prostitutes who it's like illegal to be a prostitute. Straight up, prostitutes, it's illegal, I think, everywhere except maybe Vegas for prostitutes.
Yeah, hence the Bunny Ranch.
Yeah, but there are escort services. There are sugar babies, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
These are professional people that aren't going to catch feelings, or just invest money in a professional.
Yeah, you just,
is my opinion.
Yeah. I'm not sorry to cut you off, Brandie, but just make the arrangement. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, aside from Connecticut, isn't WWE still based out of New York?
I think they've got an office there, but I think the main office, Titan Towers, is Connecticut.
And if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, but I think they have escort service, which is high in New York, where you can get a high end call girl and do your business, Benny Matt. Yeah. Do your thing.
I have personally known female sugar babies and male escorts. And it was, I totally get it. Would I do it? Probably not. I'm sure there's an audience for that, but I do not have that in me to do that. But I was the social media manager for a while for a sugar baby podcast, and I learned so much about the industry from doing stuff for her, and it was fascinating. And I was just like, Vince, you could have just the thing is when rich men do stuff like this, it's not so much about the sex as much as it's about the power. Right. And so that's why I think they don't go to the professionals. It's like the chase of, oh, here's a woman in the wild, and I have beguiled her with my charms and my grapefruits. She's wanting to toss my grapefruit salad.
Yep. And I want to show her that I'm the genetic jackhammer.
Yeah. And so and even to that point, like, Vince, do you, but don't give the damn woman a job in your company, because now you've got the law in your bedroom, and that's the last place we want the law, is in the bedroom. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm not here to pass moral judgment on Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Me neither.
Vince McMahon's going to do what Vince McMahon's going to do. And no one is surprised. Oh, shocking. A 70-something-year-old billionaire has been cheating on his wife. Big surprise. No one was surprised. I think what everyone was surprised about was how stupid he was about it.
Yeah. Yep. Passing out that hush money in the bank. Show her what you drink.
Oh, apparently only the finest. It's just like, Vince, do you, boo-boo. Wine dine 69 all you want, but don't do it don't do it on the company's visa. Don't do it.
Yeah, that'll land you in some deep doo-doo.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's an ongoing case with Vince McMahon, and my thing is it feels a little targeted. And I don't want to sound like I'm not empathetic to what those women went through. No. Being coerced or feeling pressured to have sex with someone is awful. It is against the law. Having to do things, sexual things under duress, or any kind of things really under duress, is wrong.
Or to keep your job.
Yeah. What Vince McMahon, we're going to say allegedly because we are not a jury, we are not a judge. So allegedly, what Vince McMahon did to this woman is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because I am not a judge and because I am not a jury, I'm not going to speak on that. I'm going to speak on the legalities of mixing your
$1 million Matt's the executioner.
Yeah, we're just solely speaking about this from the perspective of using company money for extramarital affairs, or I mean, even if he was single, still using company money for that stuff. And a lot of people have been pointing out, like, do you think this is something that, like, internal, or someone's trying to take him down? Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe.
Possibly. Yeah.
And
it could be an inside job, but we don't know.
Yeah. And honestly, for this to have seen the light of day like it has, there's got to be a little more than smoke there, you know?
Yep.
So it will be interesting. We're going to keep tuned in to see what's happening with old Vinnie Mac. But here at Wrestling Fluency, we just want to say, hire the professionals, guys.
Yep.
Definitely. And if you are a professional listening and you would like to buy ad space on our program, please send us an email.
Yep. Email or give us a tweet, whatever. Slide up in the DMs.
We can talk ad space. Yep. All right. Let's move on to the next kind of controversial thing.
Yep.
That's been in the news recently. And that's been Jordan Grace's tweet about Chris Benoit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have the tweet pulled up. I guess I should have done that. But I don't have it.
Yeah, but the gist of it was saying how Benoit couldn't keep up with the current wrestlers today and that he would not remember the match.
And I'm like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? Chris Benoit, whether you enjoyed his style or not, technically was one of the best technical wrestlers of all time, period, in a story.
Yeah, and he said that in his promos.
It for it to be true. Yeah. I mean, I was not someone who rabidly wanted to watch Chris Benoit matches. But I can go back and go, God, man, he had it, though. He had the techniques down.
Yeah.
I was much more a Dean Malenko person.
Yeah, me, myself, I personally enjoyed Benoit mostly for the fact on how hard he sold, because he made you believe that he took a very serious and hard bump. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like his intensity and all his moves, everything just slapped.
Yeah. Well, I was never the biggest fan of Benoit. I always found him a little boring. But now, like, going back as an adult and knowing about wrestling, I can really respect his body of work.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think some of his stuff and some of his inspiration actually came from Dynamite Kid.
It did.
Dynamite Kid had a similar style before Benoit, and that's where that intensity comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't understand how you do. And then, like, the whole thought of memorizing the match, I'm like, well, from what I understand, you don't memorize your match. You have your booker gives you the finish, and then you have, you call your match in the ring. From what I'm to understand, from what I've heard from, like, people who have been in the business a long time and them talking about what it's like to actually wrestle, the big difference between this generation and the previous generation is that a lot of the stuff now is so scripted and so choreographed, where in the past the guys were more likely to just, like, call it on the fly, which I personally think is probably better, because the less steps to forget, the better.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And more importantly, especially as any performer, especially in wrestling, would know, is knowing how to read and understand body language. Yeah. Like if somebody's calling a suplex or somebody's calling a Hurricane Rana, or you're throwing your opponent outside to take a powder, and then after that do a plancha.
Yeah.
Just like you're able to read and know and understand what your opponent's going to do,
Yeah.
and that's a gift.
Indeed. Now, as someone who has done stand up before, let me tell you, when you do stand up, you're reciting a monologue. Okay, these are jokes that you've written, you've rehearsed a lot of it. And some people you can go and they have rehearsed it down to the finite detail of what they do with their hands. I was never that person because I could perform my set for my friends the same way 30 times before I went up there to do it, and it would be completely different because once you're up there and you're in the atmosphere, you're reading off. And so a lot of my stuff, like, yeah, I had the program of what I was going to say, but like a lot of asides, a lot of jokes on the fly, a lot of off the cuff stuff, a lot of body stuff, like just so much stuff you don't know until you're up there and you read the crowd. And I think that wrestling is probably a lot like that,
Mm-hmm.
or that
Oh
it
yeah,
used to be.
oh
And
yeah, it definitely is.
I've done theater and stuff like that before, and I've
Yeah,
often had roles where I was like an ad-libber person, and I've always been able to just like do stuff like that
yeah,
on the fly. Oh, I was
yeah,
thinking of it earlier. I was thinking of what the term was called, but now I can't remember.
yeah.
Improvisational.
Right, right. Yeah, that's
I've
it.
always been able to improv well, and I feel like that's what older wrestlers were able to do probably better than this current generation, or a lot of the people in the current generation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the thing was, and it's like I said before, the match was pretty much just predetermined for you, and you knew what your start of the match was. You knew the climax of the match. You even knew the finish.
Yes. So she makes the comment about how he would forget half the match. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's not really a big deal. And it shouldn't be a big deal to anyone. And it kind of offended me where she said he would forget. Because what we found out about Chris Benoit after his autopsy was that from doing those headbutts so much, his brain was pretty much the same as a 80-year-old with
Yeah, or
dementia.
yeah, or a 90-year old. Just like
Yeah.
there's times more than likely Benoit was concussed during matches, but he was so professional and he would just like fight through the pain.
Yeah. And it just seemed, look, I'll say this right out. I do not agree with what Chris Benoit did. I think anyone
Nobody did.
who wants to try to say that people who say, well, what about his body of work are approving or co-signing what he did? Absolutely not. No one. No one. It's like, yeah, he totally should have just killed his whole family. Nobody is saying that. And if you think that, you're a fucking idiot.
Or
Like,
a psychopath.
yeah. If you think that about people, because that's the argument that I saw amongst a bunch of fanboys. My issue with Jordan's tweet is not the content of her tweet, though I find things wrong with it. It's the fact that these wrestlers, they use Benoit and that fucking tragedy to drum up they use their hot takes to drum up notoriety for themselves. And they don't realize Nancy still has family that's alive. Benoit still has a son who's in the wrestling world. And when you bring this shit up again, you drag them through it all over again.
Yeah, exactly. You drag them right through the mud, and it's just one of those things where people don't think, hasn't this family or haven't these people been through enough already?
Yeah. I mean, does David, think about it. David Benoit looks just like his daddy. And I haven't seen him wrestle, but I heard he's pretty good. And so I would think he probably wrestles a little bit like his daddy. And to think that he's out there trying to do something that he loves and in his blood, he's already going to face hurdles because the last name Benoit and he looks just like his dad.
Right.
And now every so often when some mid-card fucking person feels like they need a little attention, so they throw out their hot takes. You drag a family through the worst fucking day of their lives over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's what pissed me off. I knew vaguely who Jordan Grace was when this tweet came out, and I was hot. Man, I was hot when I saw that. Not because I'm a diehard Benoit stan, but because I am pro the victims of that tragedy. And his son, the one that survived, the one that's living, is a victim of that just as much as Nancy's sister and stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They're
Yeah.
victims of that. Benoit is never going to read your fucking tweet, but his
Yeah.
son may see it. Nancy's sister and Nancy's family may see it.
Yeah. And I was gonna say a little bit of a moment from the Dark Side of the Ring episode. I'm not sure. Have you seen the Benoit episode, Dark Side of the Ring? Because I was going to elaborate on that.
I have.
And I'll tell you what, part two of that, where David Benoit's aunt and David reunited. I'm not gonna lie, I got a bit emotional because that was a heartwarming reunion.
Yeah.
And just for the fact that, as Brandie was saying, that tweet came up. It's just like, really, you're going to allow these people to relive a moment that they rather not talk about or rather not deal with and just move on and just live life at peace with each other after reuniting? It's like, come on, dude. Just for you to go viral for 15 minutes, it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It just hurts people and it shows your ignorance. So I'm on the record right now saying, Jordan Grace, your tweet was ignorant.
Yep.
Ignorant.
Yep. And we're going to give you the Somebody Take Your Phone Away award.
Somebody take your phone away. No more tweetings for you today.
Yep.
But
be like your middle school teacher. Take your phone away.
For real. Time out.
Yep. Give me your phone.
But now, Matt, you did tell me that you saw where she had apologized to David about this.
Yes, and it was actually on a IG Live, and it was a conversation between her and David. And I only seen a brief part of the conversation, and all I needed to see really. But from what I understand, she donated, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, $5,000 to a concussion charity. And on top of that, she also apologized to David.
See, and that's where she's redeemed herself. I know I just sat here and told her she was ignorant. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Ignorant is not always bad or good. Ignorant just is. Mm-hmm. And I love that she came from a place of ignorance and she said something. And then she listened when people pointed out to her, hey, your hot take tweet, it's damaging people. And she was, not only did she apologize to the person that it affects heavily still to this day, she also went the distance and made a donation. Chef's kiss. Love that. So Jordan Grace, good on you. Proud of you for doing that. We love to see self-aware people do self-aware things. So even though your first tweet was ignorant, I'm proud of you for remedying yourself.
Yep. And we will say this, and we need to see this more often, especially when people put out ignorant tweets or anything like that. Have some fucking accountability, because you don't know who you're hurting, you don't know who you're damaging, and you don't know who you can destroy. I mean, not to go a little off topic, it's bad enough Kana Hamura freaking committed suicide because of multiple tweets just about her in person.
Well, Wrestling Observer they covered a story that I think came from Forbes or Business or something like that, one of the big well-known institutions, and they went and looked to see of female athletes who, I guess of athletes in general, but female athletes specifically is what was brought up, who gets harassed the most, and it was Ronda Rousey, followed by Becky Lynch. So 2 female wrestlers are dealing with this huge amount of online harassment from people. And it's not just them. Like Rhea Ripley has recently come out and been like, hey, this is, and I forget what, Demi is her name. Hey, this is Demi, the person that's like inside Rhea Ripley's body, like the character. She's had to say it. Shotzi's father died at the beginning of this year. People rode her so hard after this last pay-per-view messing up that she had to delete her Twitter. Yeah. Twitter, look, I'll tell you right now, I don't like to fuck around with Twitter because Twitter is mean.
Yeah.
Twitter is really mean, and I just would rather not use it. So I put stuff out that has to do with the show, but Twitter is not a form of social media I will ever be really engaging with because it's cruel. It's cruel how people treat people on there.
Yeah, and I'm also I never have been a fan of Twitter, never will be. I had one back in the day, but I got rid of it mostly because of the fact that people are really ignorant and just say anything just to get a rise out of you, and it strokes their ego, but really at the end of the day, it brings up a lot of their insecurities and how they feel about themselves.
Well, it does. Anytime someone personally attacks you and says something about you in that way, it is a reflection of their own pain. You know, it's an issue that they're having. But that doesn't mean we have to hold space for those people. That doesn't mean we have to entertain those people. Oh my Lord, I don't know if y'all can hear that, but my cats they're up to something. Anyway, when it comes to Twitter, I don't like it. And honestly, I see this on Facebook too. Anytime you go into one of the wrestling group chats on Facebook, you go to one of the pages, you see wrestling fans saying the most nasty things, just horrible. Let one of the wrestling wrestling pages put out an article that has anything to do with the Bella twins. Holy shit, the stuff you will see. And I'm like, yo, that's a person. That's a whole ass person that you're saying this about.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and they wonder why women are so afraid of men. Hello, we've been online with you for the past 10, 15 years. We see the shit that you say about women who look like the Bella twins. So of course we're scared of what, we're scared of what you're going to do or what you're going to say to us. You're our natural predator.
Yeah, exactly. And here's another thing too, Brandie. A lot of them are I'm not trying to shit on. Okay, fuck it. I'm going to go in. You're a bunch of faceless fucking cowards. How about that? I was gonna be cool about it, but you know what? I'm gonna go right in on y'all. It's not cool to sit there and talk shit about somebody and then not show your face.
Yeah.
Just because you're tough behind your little keyboard. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah. And a lot of those people are like, well, I mean, it's the internet. This is how the real world is. And I'm like, you're talking about this is how people are. Do you not realize people are justifying being an asshole by saying like, well, people are just assholes. Yeah, and you're one of them. You're one of the assholes. And that's not to say that I'm not. I mean, we're all assholes to certain degrees, depending on the mood you catch us in.
Right. And here's the thing too, Brandie. Don't get like that behind the keyboard, but I guarantee you if they seen you in real life, they'd be acting all friendly and they'd act like they're your best friend, or they act like they're afraid to talk to you. And it's just like, dude, what you're saying is not congruent to what you were typing behind your little keyboard.
Oh my gosh. You know, just as a sidebar, women also do this. So I will tell you right now, having worked at an emergency answering service, women would talk to me any kind of way, treat me. And I'm just like, if you knew what was sitting on the other side of that phone, there ain't no way in hell. There ain't no way in hell that you would look at me and say this shit. You would take some pause because of you could physically see what the fuck you were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I ain't no lightweight bitch, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you need to tone down, Karen.
It's like the ancestors, my ancestors apparently were all built for hard, strenuous labor. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
We were a broad, strong woman. Okay. But just that sidebar. So I just want the guys out there to know that in wrestling, it's usually the men that I see doing this because wrestling has a lot of male fans. But women do it as well in other arenas. And that's one. Oh my gosh. One arena, if you like makeup, like if you've ever been a YouTube makeup person where you watch that, you go to Reddit and see the girls talking, woo, they're mean. So yeah, everybody, male, female, etc., can be assholes. And maybe we need to just take like 2 seconds to think before we send. We need to practice the pause.
Yep, exactly. Yep, y'all need a little tranquilo in your life.
Tranquilo.
A little tranquilo.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, speaking of tranquilo, I don't know how to say it.
Yep, tranquilo.
The next entry in our What's Going On is about someone who is not known for keeping their cool, and that is Jim Cornette versus the world.
I was going to say, you know a lot more about that, Brandie, so I'm just going to let you take in on that, and I'll just chime in.
Well, every time I get on the damn Twitter, Jim Cornette is trending. I was like, why is Jim Cornette trending again? What the hell? Now, I know he's got a really popular wrestling podcast. I listen to his podcast.
Yep.
And so, of course, I hear him talk about. So when I get on, I'm like, damn it, Corny's trending again. What's he said about Russo? What's he said? No, this time he's been fighting with Kenny Omega, as usual. And then he said that Jon Moxley was the worst wrestler in the world. And that's where we get Corny versus the world. Because people like Mox a lot. And they're like, fuck you, Cornette.
Yeah. Yep. And I was going to say, my only rebuttal and pushback to Cornette is, if you think Moxley's the worst, have you seen the Great Khali?
He has, and he probably would say the same thing. The thing is that people take it real personally when Jim Cornette insults one of their favorite wrestlers.
Right.
They take it almost like that he's insulted them. And I'm like, yo, I know Jim Cornette is really respected in the wrestling world because of
definitely.
Because of his contributions to wrestling, because of how serious he takes the sport, how passionate he is.
Yep. And I actually have a memory of Jim Cornette. I actually passed by him in Ring of Honor. I didn't tell you this, Brandie, but I actually got a chance to have like a short conversation with him, but nothing too memorable except, hey, Jim, how's it going? I enjoy your stuff you're doing with Ring of Honor. He said, oh, thanks, man. Hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah.
And, we both went about our shit.
I think I went to TNA when he was booking at one time, and that's it. But I've never met Cornette. But the thing is I'm from Alabama, y'all. I know 1,000 Jim Cornettes, okay? I know so many little old men. My dad is a version of Jim Cornette, okay? You cannot take everything that they say as Bible. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to them and take in what they're saying and see what you think about it. And if you disagree with it, you don't have to have this visceral, I'm so mad. You don't have to have that.
Right. And it's the same thing. And going a little bit off topic with Jim Cornette, it's the same thing with the Meltzer bros that take everything that Meltzer says and take it as the gospel. And it's just like, it's not all true, folks.
Yeah.
Sometimes he don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But back to Cornette, he just has an opinion, just like every wrestling fan. We all have an opinion on what we like. Some people like the old school style. Some people like the Japanese strong style. Some people like lucha libre. Some people like the independent flippy stuff. A lot of people like the freaking knee slap. Yeah. It just depends on what you like. You just got to take it with a grain of salt and be like, okay, that person has an opinion. I just don't agree with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that Jim Cornette says that I'm like, good God, like, no, I disagree. Or he'll be like, this or that, and I'm like, well, I personally liked that, even if that's not like how it used to be done. I enjoy that kind of stuff. So Jim Cornette is one of those I like to listen to him because I like to hear him rant. It really cracks me up. But
Yeah,
I like to hear him talk about like classical wrestling. I think him and Brian, his co-host, are hilarious together.
right.
I enjoy Jim Cornette's wildlife update and learning about the damn dew point. All the biology classes I've taken in my life, and I had to listen to Jim Cornette to learn about the damn dew point. But
Yep.
the thing is that you don't have to let these internet personalities dictate to you what you like.
Hmm.
You don't like the and so Kenny Omega and Jim Cornette have been at each other's throats for years. And Kenny Omega was doing a Twitch stream and he was talking about how Cornette's show is for losers. And that pisses me the fuck off because I cannot stand it when these wrestlers get on these shows and say stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people listen to Jim Cornette.
Oh
Okay?
yeah, of course.
You and not everybody who listens to him agrees with every damn thing he says. I was like, I don't have anything against Kenny Omega, but when he sits up there and says that because I listen to a podcast about wrestling that I'm a fucking idiot, I don't like that. That makes me like you less, and that has nothing to do with Jim Cornette telling me. You're telling me to like you less because you're insulting me without even knowing me. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And it's the same thing for anybody that might say anything negative about whether it be Stone Cold's podcast, whether it be Freddie
Yeah,
Prinze Jr.'s podcast, whether it be Chris Jericho's podcast. And it's just like, okay, you're just shitting on people who listen to podcasts.
yeah.
And a lot of us wrestling fans, we have a problem with that.
Yeah, well, it's just like, you're making it hard to like you when you act this way. So, Kenny Omega, nothing that anyone else has ever said about Kenny Omega has made me feel whether I like him or not. His behavior, the shit that he says, his stuff that he comes out with affects whether I like him or not. And when he sits up there and says all these negative things about wrestling fans, I'm like, well, you're insulting me too. So, like, why? If you think this lowly of me, why should I support you?
Yeah, exactly. You're basically shitting on the people that buy your t-shirts or even buy a ticket to an AEW event
Yeah.
just to see you.
And, like, but before, when Kenny Omega was just a wrestler, I liked him just fine. I was like, huh, he's got some cool stuff. I'm a big Final Fantasy VII fan,
Oh
and him
yeah.
having the one winged angel and like all that, like I loved that. That's what made me interested. I was like, oh, I like that dude because he obviously likes like a lot of the same stuff that I grew up liking as well. But when he calls me a fucking idiot all the time, it's kind of like, this is
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
off-putting.
yeah, it makes you cringe.
Yeah. And it's not like he's in character as a heel being like, oh, you fucking losers in the audience. No, it's like who I don't know what his real name is, but it's Kenny Omega sitting on Twitch being like, yeah, all these people who listen to this certain podcast are fucking stupid. I'm like, that ain't the way to
Yeah,
go,
it
bro.
makes you cringe.
That ain't the way to go. You
It,
can
it, it
call out people for their bad behavior without lumping in people.
yeah, without putting some kind of label on them.
It's like, come on. So that's my thing. That's my thing. Kenny
Tone it down.
has my thing is, have you ever stopped, listened to what Cornette said, went back and watched your match from that perspective, and thought about it? Have you like because he comes across? I like when Jim goes in on the Young Bucks and like Moxley and
Or anybody who
Kenny.
needs
Yeah,
slaps.
when he goes in on like a lot of the new guys, I'm like, I understand his point, but I also hold space for the people he's talking about. Um, but my thing is that you've got like John Moxley, who he'll say things every once in a while, but John Moxley is a perfect example of he's like, yeah, you think that about me? Well, fuck you, and he goes and he continues to do what it is that he wants to do. I listened to Jim Cornette's show. He hates Kenny Omega, or not Kenny Omega, but John Moxley. He hates him. He thinks he's the worst wrestler in the world. I like Jon Moxley because even if I don't think all of his wrestling is great, I like his character. No amount of times of Jim Cornette saying on his show, "Oh, I fucking hate Moxley," is going to make me change how I feel about Jon Moxley until Jon Moxley does something that makes me change how I feel about him. But the thing, and so it's like you just got to stop taking these these podcast personality people so seriously. But take the criticism, look at it through that lens, see if it applies, and if you really feel like it doesn't, then just fucking forget about it and discard it and go on. If you really think that Jim is so awful, why are you giving him life? Because every time Kenny Omega mentions him, it just drives up more listeners because people want to hear what Corny has to say about
it.
Yeah, you're feeding the trolls.
Yep. Yeah, you're putting gasoline on the fire.
Yeah. But Kenny's response, the way he acts when anyone criticizes him, really comes across as someone who can't take criticism.
Yeah, and it's almost like you hurt his feelings. A little off topic too. It kind of reminds me of when the episode where Eddie Kingston was actually on Talk is Jericho, where Eddie Kingston was talking about the days where he would be on the car rides with different wrestlers and they'd be busting each other's balls. You know, and that kind of reminds me of the same thing when me and my friends would be on car rides. We'd be busting each other's chops. I mean, of course, some of us would get pissed. Well, me. But anyway, for the most part, you just shake it off and it's just like whatever, because that's something you're used to. But anyway, back to Eddie Kingston, where he said something. I guess he made a joke about Jungle Boy, and I guess Jungle Boy looked at him like he hurt his feelings or something like that. And it was just like, wow, this is a different breed of wrestlers.
Yeah. I grew up, and in my family, banter is a thing. Like my uncle used to walk into the house and he would just look at my aunt and be like, "Shut up, Faye." Like that's how he said hello. "Shut up, Faye." Like he taught his birds that when she came in to his house, they would say, "Shut up, Faye." Like that's the kind of, but it was like it was banter, it was joking, it was like a loving thing. But I grew up in a family that like we were always ribbing each other and cracking each other's like jokes. So maybe I'm not as sensitive, but I know that I am still sensitive. Like if someone's really mean to me and insults me, like if they insult my if you insult my intelligence, that hurts my feelings more. Or well, not even really hurts my feelings. I mean, it does hurt my feelings, but it also makes me fucking mad. I do not like to be called dumb because I worked real hard in my life to make sure I'm not dumb, and I've got the testing and schooling to prove it. I am not dumb, but yeah. I'm off on a tangent there, but like Kenny Omega is regarded by a lot of people as one of the best, if not the best wrestler in the world. He has had a long career with a lot of very popular matches. He has got his roses. He has got his flowers. I wish he would not let Jim Cornette fucking bring him down. And I wish he would not let like those people who are vocal and mean to him on Twitter be the voice for all of us, you know? I'm sorry, the average Cult of Cornette member that attacks him on Twitter has little to nothing in common with me, you know?
Yep, but, exactly. Or anybody, really.
Yeah.
They're in a space of their own.
So anyway, I think Moxley handles that stuff well. I think Jim Cornette is a funny old guy and he's cool to listen to some stuff about wrestling. I think he's got a lot of good opinions that should be listened to. And I think that if the young talent would stop living in their triggered state every time he says something mean about them and really take and listen to what he's saying.
Right. Take inventory of what they're saying and maybe learn something.
Yeah. But moving on, we've been talking about sensitivity. The next person we're speaking about is someone that I often see people complaining was too sensitive. There's recent news about Sasha Banks.
Yep.
So as we know, Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out. It's been, what, about a month?
Yep. Or two? Yeah, about a month or two, ballpark. Right in time, right before the summer.
Yeah. They They tossed those belts to Johnny Ace and said, "We'll be seeing you." You know.
Yep.
Well,
Yep. You take
recently,
those titles and shove it.
take those titles and shove it here, Johnny Ace. You might want to hold on to those titles. You might need to hack them, take them, and take them to the pawn shop because you are totally fired.
Yep.
He's been.
Yes.
I don't know if he's on suspended pay or not, but I know he's suspended. I guess.
Oh
But
yeah,
anyway,
definitely.
anyway, Johnny Ace. Oof. But Sasha, recently people have been reaching out to Sasha's management team. There's been all these like talks about how Sasha's lawyers have been trying to get her out of her contract with WWE and all that. So people have been reaching out to try to book Sasha for different things because these wrestlers do like comic cons and stuff like that. Especially Sasha, who is like a nerd queen goddess, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's come out that Sasha is not booking anything wrestling related until the first of the year. So 2023, January 2023. So people are like, so is she done? Is she coming back to WWE? Like, what's happening? Because we've not heard really anything going forward about that. We have heard, though, that. Did you read this about how much they're saying it costs to book Sasha? Like what her booking fee is?
Yeah, I think ballpark. And if I'm not mistaken, you can go ahead and correct me on this, Brandie. Isn't it like $30,000 or something like that?
$30,000. $30,000 exactly. Yep, that's right. And
Yep.
a lot of people have different feelings about it. And I am of the persuasion of if you can get it, get it. You
Yep.
know,
Yep. And I'm going to add to that, Brandy. If your value increases, of course you're going to want what you're worth. It's the same
I
thing, and it's the same thing if you are experienced at a certain job and all that. Once you're good at that job, and uh, I think the Joker said it best: when you're good at something, you never do it for free.
yeah, and you should have. I really look. Us plebes down here, we look at $30,000 and we go, "God damn, we don't make that in a year." We're talking about thirty thousand
Yeah,
dollars. But for people who are like in movies and like big wrestlers, like Sasha Banks became, $30,000 ain't shit, you
yeah,
know. So,
exactly.
and I had a friend who at her college, she was in charge of booking the entertainment for the college for like a whole semester. And I got to
Hmm.
see really how much money these people, even just colleges, are working with.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with all the tuitions and all the different financial aid and all kinds of checks coming in for different students coming in, especially ones coming from overseas.
Yeah, yeah. You get a lot of money for that. But anyway,
But it goes back to what I said earlier. Once you've increased your value, of course you're gonna want the money that you're worth, and that's the thing with it. And going back to what Brandy was saying, I guess you have a friend that is in charge of booking talent over at colleges, and certain talent wanting to be paid certain amounts of money or X amount of dollars.
let me tell you, man, I hosted a festival when I was doing stand up relatively often. And by no means have I been like some big stand up comedian. I've just done some local stuff. But uh, a friend of mine was throwing a big music festival and they needed a host. And so I was the host of the music festival. And they got a certain person. I think they're like a country music person, maybe a folk indie kind of person. I don't know, really well known. They got that person to come and be the headliner for the show. And let me, not only was it close to that to get them, they had stupid, absolutely stupid stuff in their riders of like what the snacks they wanted, this, that, and the third. Just like really diva dramatic behavior on top of asking for the. I'm sorry, if I'm paying you $30,000, maybe your ass goes to Taco Bell before you come on over. Like,
Yeah, really.
but so when you actually know a little bit about the business and booking people for events and shows, $30,000 doesn't really come across as that much.
Yeah.
This
And
was
I was gonna say it's funny you mentioned writers because it reminds me of what Chris Jericho mentioned in a in his book No is a four-letter word when he was, I believe, when he was touring with Saxon, and I guess Fozzy got a chicken, and the lead singer of Saxon, whatever his name was mad that he didn't get chicken and Fozzy got chicken. And in the book, the conversation went a little something like this: "What's my chicken, Jericho? Did you ask for one? No. Well, then that's when you didn't get one. Now leave me the hell alone. Get the fuck out of my face." And I could have been paraphrasing, but
Oh
that's
my
where the
gosh.
conversation went. But that is a funny book. Y'all ought to read it.
Oh man, I have not read Jericho's book. I really should. For a while there, I had read Lita's book and Edge's book and Foley's books, and I've read the Bellas and Trish. I've read a lot of wrestling books. I just fell off. So I do need to read that. That sounds. I'd
Oh
love to
yeah,
see it.
yeah. Definitely read Jericho's book. It's a good read, especially No is a four-letter word.
Sounds good. Well, so Sasha Banks, is she worth $30,000? Well, if you have an event and you have an event budget, you make that choice because that's how much it costs to get her, bitch. Okay,
Yep,
so
exactly.
moving on to our last. Well, actually, let me back this up before we go into our last thing. You know, we talked about Vince earlier, and we were talking about Sasha, and obviously Sasha left because she's unhappy. About 3 hours ago, before we started filming or recording this, there was there was not an interview, but an article that came out on Fightful Select where they were talking about a lot of the women backstage are really unhappy right now with how they're being booked and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, what else is new? It's the WWE.
Yeah, exactly. They're pretty much going to center around, okay, how can we make the main event matter?
Yeah.
Because that's basically what it is.
Well, they can't write stories worth a damn, and we're going to talk more on that later. We're going to put a pin in that there because it plays into our final current event, and that is Miss Liv Morgan becoming the SmackDown Women's Champion.
Yep. And
Now,
yep,
go ahead, Matt.
yep. I was gonna say we talked a little bit about this, and it's great, and we are glad and happy for Liv. I mean, since day one, even Brandie says it. She's been rooting for Liv ever since she was down in NXT. I've been rooting for Liv since she was down in NXT ever since day one, and I was like, man, this girl's a star.
I like Liv. When I first saw her, I thought that girl's got it. She's got that little something about her. I know some people are like, oh, she's too small, she's too feminine. And I'm like, that means you ain't seen girls fight because I have seen some small, pretty feminine women whip the shit out of some women before. I was like, you just ain't been around girl fights very much. I had a friend who I swear to God, if you were going to go in a mosh pit or like a group fight, you would just strap her to your back like a little doomsday device and run through a crowd. She'd whoop everybody's ass. She is like five. My friend, I have a friend named Heather. She is 5 foot nothing, but she is trained MMA. She will choke your fucking ass out. Holy crap. I was like, if you would see me and her, and it would be her you needed to worry about between the two of us because she would be the one. She would be the one to not only start it, she'd finish it. Whereas I would be more like, yeah, fuck you and go on. But anyway, with Liv, we both have talked about the potential of Liv. We've both talked about it's finally happened. She won Money in the Bank, and she cashed in on Ronda, which was kind of because it like I'm not too big of a fan of baby faces cashing in on downed people. It doesn't feel very face,
Yeah,
you
very
know?
babyface like.
Yeah, and Liv has been a white meat baby face.
Yeah, very vanilla, very I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to finally be holding this championship. Da 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 da. And it's just like, okay, where's this going to go other
Yeah.
than you're trying to promote a plain, dry baby face? Not that Liv is dry, but I'm just saying.
Well, so this whole time they've done kind of the underdog thing with her, and Liv is popular amongst the internet people because she does try hard. She's a funny girl, you know, she's entertaining on social media. People like her.
Oh
She's a
yeah, definitely.
likable person. So she comes, she cashes in, and she has her moment in the ring where it's the girlhood dream. And she's all teary, and it's a feel good moment, which is fine. But then we get to Raw, and she comes out, and she cuts a fucking potato salad,
Data.
mayonnaise, bland ass baby face promo. It's something that someone
Yep.
in the back row, gee golly willikers, we did it.
Yep. Yep.
We
And
did it, everyone.
yep. And it comes back to what I was saying about late 1999, early 2000 WCW. We're gonna kick butt now.
It is related to that. And she's like, I couldn't have done it without all of you. It was so PBS, so Mr. Rogers, so fucking Barney the dinosaur.
Yep.
It is unseasoned chicken, okay?
Yep.
It is bad. And
Yep.
it's not her that's bad. She's wonderful. She looks great. She wrestles pretty good. She's able to remember and deliver her lines, but the fact of the matter is the people that writes her lines are awful.
Yep.
Their writing is awful.
Yep. They are trash. They are booty butt cheeks, not the booty butt cheeks I like either.
Yeah. And I'm sure these people have to be somewhat talented, because everybody's talented to a certain degree. Everyone's talented at something. And so if you're going to college for writing, you've got a little, because trust me, you don't go through all that shit unless you really love it. So I'm just, who signed off on this?
I think it's one of those things, Brandie, where I've always thought about this. If they tried really hard, they could really make good promos, especially if you're promoting a baby face and you want to make them believable and you want to give the fans a reason to see this person. Just like when you seen Hulk Hogan deliver a promo, or you heard even Bret the Hitman Hart deliver a promo, you believed in that person. You believed in them being the champion. You believed in what their purpose was as the baby face. And that it was to defeat the heel.
Well, I just can't stand that, like, I'm the champion and it's because of all of you. I just don't like that. You know who had a really endearing first title win? Paige. When Paige won it off AJ, and she was in the back and she was crying, and she said, "They're not even supposed to know who I am." That was real. You felt that, and that endeared Paige to you. And that's a white meat baby face thing. They're not supposed to know who I am. You know?
Yeah.
You and when I was taking voice lessons, my teacher always used to talk about, like, you have to decide when you're performing something. And that's what it is when you go out to do a promo. You're performing something. You have to decide what you want people to feel.
Yep, exactly.
Do you want them to laugh with you? Do you to cry with you? What do you want them to do?
And I'm going to go even deeper with that, Brandie. Believe it or not, I actually did chorus and I actually had a bit part in a play. And one thing I learned is when you are playing a character and you're delivering a line, you have to commit to it.
Yeah.
100%. You have to be all in on it. You can't just dip your toe in or halfway take a step and just think that people are going to respond to that. No, people respond to you being fully in.
Yeah. And so Liv talks like every Liv talks like every Gen Z girl on TikTok kind of deal, which that's fine. That's how she talks. There's nothing wrong with that. But do something with that, work that into, like, there's a picture of her and Bianca wrote, in the words of Liv, I love that for us. Like, let that come through a little bit more. Let her talk. Let her have something to do with the writing process,
Right.
And
exactly.
One thing that we really talked about, that I really got into it as someone who is a writer myself, is I was like, what are they going to do with Liv now? Because she's boring. She's boring as this babyface champion.
Yeah.
And she looks, someone said it and it made a lot of sense. She kind of looks like someone cosplaying a woman's champion. And I thought about that, and I was like, it's because they haven't done anything to establish credibility for her yet. I mean, she's been likable, And she's been the girl that you're like, oh, maybe it's a Cinderella moment. No, not again. They've teetered back and forth with her. But as a writer, I was talking to you about what irritates me. And I was like, WWE does not utilize the most basic thing you learn when you're learning how to write. And that's the 3-act story structure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I remember you mentioning that too.
Yeah. 3-act story structure is, I believe Aristotle talked about it, was one of the first people to talk about it. But it's been studied, it's been used. The majority of your favorite movies, you can go and break it down in 3-act story structure.
Mm-hmm.
And how WWE should work is storylines with these characters should have 3 acts from beginning to end. And then the program in general should have a running 3-act structure. And it lacks that. And so to talk about the 3-act structure just a little bit, I want to explain to you, like not you specifically, Matt, but the listener.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, just so the audience knows what Brandie here is about to explain, what she's talking about here.
So in we'll use Liv kind of to speak about this. In Act 1, that is your beginning. It's the setup for this overarching thing. Because you got to remember, she's in the beginning of her title reign. There is an end coming. You need to be planning for the end as the writer. So Act 1 is the beginning. And then there is an inciting incident, the second thoughts, and then the climax of Act 1. So in the beginning, you have the inciting incident, and that brings forth your misconception about the world. So for Liv, her misconception going forward should be, oh, I'm the champion now. Yeah, I'm the best. No, you're not the best. That her misbelief should be like, I'm the champion and all these people help me, and because all the fans love me, I'm going to be the most fightingest champion, da-da-da. That's her misalignment, okay? The inciting incident needs to be getting her ass handed to her, like getting tore up and just barely making it out, just barely holding on, which I feel like is what they're kind of trying to do with Natalya and Ronda Rousey.
Ronda Rousey, yep.
But like, no one really considers Natalya a threat. If you've just won the title and your first challenger is Natalya, nobody believes Natalya is going to take that off you. Right. Nobody. So Ronda Rousey adds a little bit of legitimacy here, but at the same time, fans kind of know that she's ready to be with her baby, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not the same as if Charlotte came back or Bayley came back, or, it's not the same. It's not the same. And that's also WWE's fault because they have not built up credible contenders. So Liv in the beginning needs to have some matches where she has to run for her life and get her ass kicked. So the second act is the confrontation. It's the obstacle. The ascending action is there's a midway point, more obstacles, disaster, and the climax of Act 2. So, in the beginning, she's getting her ass kicked. She's fighting people like Zelina. She's fighting the Natalyas, blase. But they needed to be more credible than those people are. And the matches have to reflect the struggle. It's got to be like, oh, shit. This is a lot, like they always say, it's one thing to win a title, it's another to defend it. So she needs to be like barely scraping by, getting her ass handed to her. And then you slowly see it picking up. Okay, all right, now she's getting some more moves in. All right, she got a little more grit to her. And that's when you're getting to your like midpoint. And that's when you run across your brick wall where your next opponent takes you the fuck out. You lose to them in a singles match. Something happens, and when the title's on the line, you just barely squeak out on a technicality. Kind of like how in the beginning, you're kind of back to square one. Like, shit, man, I thought this, because you've been going through these other opponents with that misbelief that, oh yeah, with me and the fans, we've got this. We've made it this far. Well, the fans can't carry you any further because the fans can't get in the ring with you. You've got to be better. And so then you need the packages with Liv where she's training like she ain't never trained, where she's mad. She's not baby face, like happy-go-lucky anymore. She's gritty and she's ready and she's got the fight. and she's going up against this person who's this threat, and she fights them and she loses. And that doesn't mean she loses her title, but that breaks her. It breaks that mentality that she's had up here. Me and the fans, we can do it. Oh shit, I had the fans with me and I couldn't beat this person. And now I have to deal with this person again because they're going to challenge me for my title. They beat me. They get a shot at me. And this leads you to what is called the dark night of the soul. It's the darkest before dawn. It's when you thought, because when that person was going into that meetup with the one that was gonna that wound up whipping their ass, you thought they were gonna overcome it, and there were flawless finishes, and you thought it was gonna happen a certain way, and it didn't. She did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. That's the dark night of the soul. That's you having to accept that your misbelief about the world, which is that, man, the fans can do anything. No, you can't. Because the fans cannot get you out of, a move that you'll tap to. So now you're at the climax, and it's you and this person. You've had this fight. You've lost. And now you've got to face them at SummerSlam, WrestleMania, whatever, for your title. And you are coming off the Dark Night of the Soul. And you've got to, the climax of that is your
comeback. That call to action.
The call to action, yeah. The comeback, really, is where you're like, okay, all right, you're seeing her again, training harder than ever. There's there's more of a gritty reality of like, I know what it's like to lose to this person. And so you have them in this match, and it's going a certain way, and you think all hope is lost, and then they get them in a hold or something, and the fans start cheering. And it's like, holy shit, even though the fans can't actually win this match for me, I can win this match for them. I can feed off their energy. Bump, bump, bump. And it is through an act alone that the character does that they overcome the obstacle and they win the match. And that is a successful program. And that's not one that's done in a month. That's done over a series of a few months to bring legitimacy. It brings legitimacy to the champion. It brings legitimacy to the title reign, to the title, to the people who are challenging for it. It protects in the end, the big catalyst, it protects in the end. And that's just one example of how you would use a 3-act structure to tell a story, and how you would do it or how I would suggest doing it for Liv.
Oh yeah, definitely, because that's your new champion, and you want to have storylines and feuds that surround around her title reign. And another thing I was going to mention too, Brandie, along with what you mentioned earlier, is you have to have that pivotal moment that challenges the champion to where they cannot overcome this moment or moments of adversity. And back to what you're saying, and I was going to give a good example of it. One of the Rocky movies where Rocky would be challenged, and then you would see him training and do a whole training montage where he's just like, he's in the boxing gym, he's lifting weights, he's chopping wood, he's doing all this other stuff right before he either meets Clubber Lang or Ivan Drago. And then he goes back and meets his final challenge and meets the final boss and goes and defeats him at the big event. So as long as you can illustrate that, a lot of fans are going to be like, okay, now we see where Liv's coming from. We see you, Liv. We got you.
I hope that the listeners can kind of see and understand what I was saying.
And oh yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I know I picked up what you were putting down.
It's important. The one thing before they send people out there on these shows should always be, and why the fuck should the person watching care?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that is such a fundamental idea, Brandie.
When I'm writing, it's like, why? Why everything is for a reason. So that's why I hate seeing throwaway matches, throwaway storylines. I hate that shit.
Yeah, it's
Because,
irritating.
yes, everything that they put on TV should always be the response. Why?
It,
Why
it
should I care?
it should matter. And like I said, it's a fundamental idea that a lot of people, especially in WWE, sometimes even AEW, forget the concept of. Why should the fan give a shit that we are seeing wrestler A or wrestler B?
Yeah.
Why should we care about this feud?
Yeah.
I'll give a very good example of a really good feud that a lot of people cared about, and that was The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
You wanted to see two of the best in the Attitude Era at the time, but there could only be one top dog, and you wanted to see it. Fans wanted to see it. I definitely wanted to see it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example and like a classic thing, like who's on top because there's only one spot, And like now, granted, wrestling is an ensemble cast, so Austin, and The Rock are both top guys. But like when you're watching wrestling, or at least back in the day when you're watching wrestling, you have it in your head that this is a show about a fighting competition. This is people are competing for the prestige of winning and winning titles. And I think that if we got back to that, we would see more titles meaning something again, better and easier for the staff to actually write storyline, happier talent. It would be better. This is the thing with WWE. WWE puts on an amazing show. The production quality, top notch, so beautiful. They've got amazingly talented people on their roster. They've got an amazing cast to work with. It is the shit. The creative is shit. It is the shit that Vince McMahon goes, this is funny. Let's put him out here and make him throw up.
It's such good shit.
Hey, pal. And I'm like, Vince.
He's gonna puke. He's gonna puke.
Ugh. That was not entertaining for anyone. I think people,
not at all.
People look back at like the Attitude Era with like these rose-colored glasses, and they forget some of the stupid shit that we had.
Oh my god, it was horrible.
Some of the stupid shit that we had.
Some of it was entertaining, and then other segments of it was honestly the drizzling shits.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff that was the drizzling shits, Vince McMahon came up with. People like to herald him as some kind of fucking genius, and that's not to say that he hasn't had genius ideas. But at the end of the day, he's also had some drizzling shit ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's my problem with the WWE. I find it almost unfucking watchable right now for the most part. I find it very offensive that sometimes their 3-hour wrestling program has about 20 minutes of fucking wrestling on it.
Yep, and majority of the show, we'll give an example. We're not picking on you, Monday Night Raw, but most of it's either talking or backstage segments.
Yeah. And the reason WWE, I've lost hope for it. When I watch AEW, it's not to say that AEW is superior to WWE. It's not to say that their talent is better. It's the fact that AEW, I have hope. It has not consistently over time proven to me that it is just going to be the shits over and over again. Where WWE has doubled down and sank their feet to show you it doesn't matter as a fan if you don't like it. This is what we're serving today, and you're welcome.
Yeah.
That's why I want to watch Raw and stuff live, because if I have to go back and watch it and I have the option of like turning it off or pausing it, I will, because it's awful.
Yeah.
Because you have people like Chad Gable on your roster doing jack shit.
Mm-hmm. And Chad Gable is freaking phenomenal. But you're giving him this I don't even know what you want to call it, where he's like, sheesh. And it's just like, it's fucking irritating.
Yeah. I'm like, well, look, it's great that he can play all these different characters, but he's a top notch athlete.
Yeah. And that's
He,
what you need to embody. Sorry to interrupt you, Brady.
yeah, he's like a fucking American treasure, okay? Was he not an Olympian? Or almost an Olympian?
Yep, he was an Olympian.
So so he was an Olympian?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he actually made it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, because I don't remember if he was like he had actually made it or if he was going to. But like, could you imagine Kurt Angle coming into the company and doing the shit that Chad Gable's doing?
Not at all. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of things that Kurt Angle did that was pretty much on like the entertainment side of things where it made him look like a doofus, but Kurt Angle made the best of it. But at the same time, it didn't take away from what he was, and that was an Olympic wrestler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's the thing: 90% of that show is comedy wrestling, and 10% of that show is Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns doing their best to save it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Even even as
Yep.
wonderful as Becky is, it's like, Becky, enough, enough.
Yeah.
At least she's
Yep.
committed.
Yeah.
Her character is annoying right now, but I have faith in her that it's for a
Yeah.
purpose and there will be a payoff.
Yeah.
The annoying stuff on the show, the majority of the annoying stuff on the show, there is no payoff. It's just how the
Yeah.
show is. So that's why I find AEW so much more watchable.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We have gone a long way past speaking about Liv, but Liv was kind of the catalyst to talk about.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say a little something coming back to Chad Gable. He actually competed in the 2012 Summer Olympics.
Yeah, he's a fucking Olympian. He's an Olympian.
Yep.
And he's a D-list wrestler on their show.
Yeah.
American Alpha was one of the most promising upstart tag teams in years when they were together.
They were amazing.
Yeah, and I know that Jason Jordan getting hurt really fucked that up. But even when he was with Shelton Benjamin, that was also a phenomenal.
Yeah, and let me touch on this, Brandie, because I had this thought when I was watching an episode of Dark Side of the Ring, the Road Warriors, when they were brought in as dominant. They should have been doing that with the fucking Viking Raiders, just like how they are booking the Viking Raiders now, where they're making them pretty strong. That's how the Viking Raiders should have came in, just like mowing through every freaking tag team, including the Usos, just making them this dominant force and this so-called vicious Viking Raiders, which I'm not buying. But anyway, back to what I was saying. You just make them a freaking dominant force to where they mow through the tag division and just become dominant champions, because it is a shame that freaking Rowe and Hanson, yeah, I'm using their indie names, are not at the top of the list as far as WWE tag teams go.
Yeah. Well, you've had the New Day and the Usos carry that division for the last, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, right around
and
there.
then you get you had like Randy and Riddle get popular, but they got popular as like a comedy act, not as like an actual team. They got popular because they made jokes about 420 and stuff. Like, nobody's gonna put Riddle and Randy in the like Hall of Fame kind of deal for their tag team partnership.
Yep, maybe separate, but that's about it.
I will wrap it up by saying the WWE is a sideshow circus in the worst possible way.
Mm-hmm.
It's carny shit. It's carny shit, and I love carny shit. I have been a carny person, and it is fucking.
Yep, and it's not good shit.
It's not, and I'm like, y'all need to stop. You need to get real writers in there and let them take the lead. Vince McMahon does not need to have creative control anymore. You would not trust Vince McMahon to run a cash register. He should not be in the final say on this show.
definitely not. And what was the point? But it comes back to what we were saying. Just if you have stars on there that you think are bland or vanilla, get them an acting coach. So that way, maybe they're not a main eventer, or maybe they're not a world champion, but you can make their segments mean something, and fans will remember it.
Exactly. That was my whole thing. I remember with Roman, I was like, dude, he's got it. He just needs an acting coach. And he got hurt and wound up working with an acting coach, and that's when he started getting better. And I was like, oh
See?
wow, it's almost like when people go on stage and they need to recite lines and act, if you get them paired up with a acting coach, they're able to do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, Matt, we've said a lot. Let's move
Yes, we did.
on to the last part that we wanted to talk about, and that is our what's next for Wrestling Fluency, because we're doing a lot of do's.
Yep. You can see us on social media where we've posted different things such as Women Wednesday, Theme Song Thursday. We have a lot of more things coming up, especially episode wise. So stay tuned, folks. We're going to have a lot more for you.
Yeah. So you're listening to this now, we hope, on one of your podcast streaming devices, or you're watching it on the YouTube because you're an OG. And if you are an OG, love you, baby. Never
Yep, we
change.
love you.
Stay gold, pony boy. Love it.
Yes, yeah, I watched that the other night.
That's a good movie. Um,
Yeah,
but
good book too.
so we have invested financially in our podcast. We are betting on ourselves. This is something that we really love doing, and we really want to do more. So we are putting in the work. We hope that you can tell. And going forward with the YouTube, we are still trying. We are still, of course, uploading these podcasts to the YouTube. They can be found there. But one thing that we're really wanting to do is live stream. We're really wanting to start live streaming on YouTube. So we are working out the like logistics of doing that. So what we're hoping to do, what we're hoping in goal becomes, is that you get 2 of these podcasts a week where it's like a podcast like this, and then you get 2 live streams where you can come and interact with us. And yeah, that's what we're working on. And we made it, we had a meeting a few weeks ago, and we knew we wanted to get, for this month, we really wanted to get on the podcast streaming networks, and we have successfully done so. And so next month we're going to try to see about getting on the YouTubes, doing some live streams. So if you have not, please follow us on our social medias. You can pretty much put Wrestling Fluency in on any of the social medias and we'll come up. And of course, you can find us on YouTube if you want to listen to some former episodes.
Yep, because the algorithm's getting to know us now.
The algorithm's getting sick of us. They're sick of me.
we don't care. We don't care because we are like a sore thumb. We're going to stick out.
We are. We really want to do this, guys. Wrestling Fluency. So let's. I almost want to put some hopeful or uplifting music in the background. Wrestling Fluency, and we say this often, is a conversation. It's a conversation between me and Matt, of course, but also a conversation with you. And, we talked a little bit on the podcast earlier about bullying and about how it often doesn't feel safe in the internet wrestling community. And Matt and I are both very passionate about the Wrestling Fluency community becoming a safe space for people to be able to come and have dissenting opinions and still be able to debate and talk about why without getting attacked for feeling differently about something. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. We feel like it's needed more now than ever.
Yep. And adding to what Brandie's saying, and I ain't saying this to sound like either one of us got a big head. There ain't no fucking podcast like us where we are advocating for actual conversation, diversity of thought, people thinking for themselves without being completely shitted on. But for the most part, we are just looking to push for conversation, whether New Japan's your thing, WWE's your thing, AEW's your thing, Impact Wrestling's your thing. Some of the indies that are still out there, like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Whatever your bag is, we're willing to talk about it with you. And you don't have to worry about anybody retaliating on you here because we don't play that.
Exactly. And if that's something that you think is really missing in this community and you really want to see grow, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media. Follow us on these podcast streaming things. Like Matt and I are doing the best we can to make sure that we are getting content out to you and that it's as good quality as we can based on what we have now. Obviously, the more steam that we have and the more resources we have, the better, the longer, everything like that. You know,
Yeah.
right now,
And
we are carving out hours of our lives to make this because we want to reach fans like us who want a community that they can be a part of, that they don't have to worry about being harassed in.
yeah, or even having thoughts of offing themselves, which I see way too often, and I'm tired of seeing it. Just from one human being to another, I don't want to see any more people offing themselves just because of differing opinions or people just harassing other people.
Well, I'm just sick of all of the personal jabs, all of the cruel things that people say. The just it's a at the end of the day, it's a TV show, guys. It's there's no way we should be this mean to each other over a TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Uh,
that's our mission statement is
yeah,
to have a community that is about conversation, debate, and respect.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're not doing this for clout or anything. We're doing this to elevate our community, and that's part of the reason why me and Brandie wanted to sit down and talk to y'all. We wanted to tell y'all the truth about why we're here.
Yeah. Well, we Matt and I saw in the community a hole. Like it sucks so bad to go into wrestling groups and chats and to just be berated and lambasted all the time. And so we were like, why like, why do you speak to people like that? And why are you so cruel? And I think like everybody has had a situation like that in some of these wrestling communities where they go in and people like go to your profile and they make fun of your pictures and pictures of your family. Sometimes they steal photos of you. Like it's really fucked up the kind of bullying that happens in these. And so we wanted to do our best to create a community where you don't have to worry about that so much, where we can disagree without hurting each other. So if that's something you're interested in, please stick around because as long as you keep coming, we'll keep coming too.
Yep. Yeah, and not only that, for the most part, we'll keep putting out stuff, and it's going to be stuff that you guys are going to enjoy and you guys are going to love, and it's just going to entertain you. And for the most part, and the thing is, you're going to have a good time listening to us because we always keep this conversation fun here, and
Yes.
that's our word. That's bond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you haven't heard a dog bark the whole damn time. I did my best. But
Yeah,
I
Brandie
have
dealing with dog issues.
Brandie and the dogs. Who let the dogs out? Apparently, every neighbor I have.
Yep, and
So,
we're not talking about Braun Breaker doing the dog bark.
oh gosh. Well, guys, it's been great. I've had a lot of fun. I have been the Alabama Slammer.
Yeah, and I am $1,000,000 Matt.
And we will catch you in the next one.
Yep, where we speak wrestling, and we hope you do too.
Bye.
Peace.